evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it is when you come across this video. I'm going to make one today, but this one's going to be a little bit different. This one is a video of, hello, how are you, and this is who I am. So, how I got to reading tarot cards, just in case anybody's wondering. First off, we all have the ability to do so, right? Just because somebody reads tarot cards or they're a medium or a psychic doesn't make them special. It just means they've taken the time to awaken and listen to what God has put in in all of our bodies, right? So, in my opinion, if God didn't put it there, then, if God put it there, then why wouldn't He want us to use it? Of course, other people have different opinions on that, but let's keep moving on and see if I can get you at least to think maybe differently a little bit about everything. So my first question a few months ago was, I been reading the Bible, very slow at it. I've read the New Testament during, the last administration, and then I'm in the Old Testament and have been for quite a bit. But anyways, moving forward. As I was reading, I started thinking about the practices and everything. What's the difference between witchcraft and religion? Besides the obvious, right? Besides the obvious, the witchcraft going to the bad guys and religion going to the good guy, obviously, right? So besides that, what is the difference? You said, what are you saying, man? You've lost your mind. Well, no, let's think about it. So, church, everybody gets together. We call it a congregation. People that practice magic and all that, they call it a coven. But people would get together and go to a entity or several entities. Every religion's a entity, right? Usually, unless you're Catholic or something, maybe then you get to call them the saints. I don't know, or the angels. But anyways, moving on. But witchcraft. In our heads, and because of TV and everything, and probably a whole lot of truth, they call on several different entities. Their offerings might look a little different than the church offerings, because we're giving the church money. They might be burning incense and candles and who knows what else, right? I don't know. I'm not getting all that, but I'm pretty sure the Catholic Church burns incense and has their own practices and rituals also, right? So, there's really no difference, right? We're just taking two things and calling them two different things. So now, my argument is magic and religion is the exact same thing. And in fact, if you are a Christian and not a practicing magician, I think you've missed something in the Bible. And I know everybody just spit out their milk, right? Because good Christians don't drink alcohol, or at least abuse it, right? Jesus did turn water to wine, so let everybody have a good time at a wedding. But moving forward, so let's clean yourself off, right? Clean all the liquid off your face, and get somebody to get the food off your chest and give you CPR, because I know you just choked on a bunch of stuff. Let's go through it. So with magic, the way I understand magic, you have to think about something, right? Put intent into it, visualize it, all that good stuff, speak it into existence. Well, if you go, or what happens in Genesis? Well, God speaks everything into existence. All right, but let's not pick on Genesis too much. Let's try to get back to Genesis. Let me tell you where I started picking up at there was no difference. What really caught my mind. So let's just move on to Exodus, because this is where things get interesting. So in Exodus, Moses has a showdown. I used to call it between witchcraft and religion. Okay, but now it's just magic versus magic, religion versus magic. Because magic is religion, so religion versus religion, magic versus magic, however you want to look at it. Okay, so anyways, they have a showdown. And at the end of the showdown, Moses takes a staff. Of course, God's intervening, okay? But see, there's an entity intervening with Pharaoh's people too, okay? But moving on to the story, Moses turns his staff into a snake. Pharaoh's people turns their staff into a snake. Moses' snake eats their snake, right? God team win. Go team God. Hit the brakes, right? Skirt. Let's go back to where this man, God's intervention, I understand that, just turned that staff into a snake. If you believe in the Bible, that happened. Okay? But let's keep moving on. So now they got a, Exodus, right? So he's got to get his people free. So God intervention again. Staff in the water, parts the water. People gets across, drops the water, kills Pharaoh and all his people. Right? That's pretty good stuff. I understand God intervened. I get that. But now they're in Exodus and they're in the wilderness and they're getting hungry and they're getting thirsty. So once again, God intervenes and God tells Moses, hey, man, take that staff, that rod, put it into that rock, get some water. Right? So again, Moses' staff, God intervention, get some water out the rock. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to see a pattern with Moses and this rod and the staff. Okay? So that started opening up my eyes a little bit. And then, so let's go to, I believe it's Joshua. All right, I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything here. So in Joshua, he asked God to stop the sun and moon so he can reign victory over his enemies, right? Might have been the Canaanites, maybe? I can't remember. But he asked God to stop the sun and moon. So what doesn't happen, God does, and that's the last time. For the first time, and I think the last, anyways, that God beckons to man's call like that. But, so anyways, I was down. So God stops the sun and moon. So what did not happen, God did not stop the earth from spinning and rotating. Okay? So that's just part of a flat earth argument, even though Genesis tells us the earth is flat. But this isn't about flat earth. This is about why, if you're a Christian, you should be a practicing magician. Because if you're not, I think you've missed something. Moving on. So now I've hit Joshua. Okay, so now let's go to Solomon. And the only reason we all know Solomon, and some of us may not, because I didn't know this up until a couple of years ago. But so Solomon was collecting gold and stuff from all these other kings and stuff. That came up to like 666, which should get like anybody's attention. What's more important, he had a bunch of money and he had a big kingdom, which God promised Solomon a kingdom. But there's a thing out there, people are saying, like, how did this kingdom get built? Well, anyway, so long story short, I don't know if you guys know this, but the same King Solomon from the Bible is like the OG magus, all right? King Solomon has his own magic, and he had sigils and seals to be able to summon demons and command them to do his work, do his deeds. So, I mean, it's no wonder Solomon lost favor in God's eyes, right? Of course, we don't get that part in the Bible, do we? At least not that I remember reading anything about his magic, anyways. So, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. I did Biblemancy is what they called it. If you ever just, hey God, just whatever you want me to know, or whatever, you just open the Bible randomly, you just whatever verse you read. Okay, well that's Biblemancy. It's a form of magic. Congratulations. Well, I did one the other day in Abba or something like that. Anyways, there was like a tribe or some people trying to make fire. They even started dancing, couldn't get fire, right? And so the guy was like, hey God, can I get some fire? God was like, sure. Gave him some fire. So of course God's intervention and everything. God always showing that he's more powerful than any of the other gods. And he states that in commandment number 1, there are no other gods before me. Now, if you keep that in mind when you are practicing magic, well, I think you're pretty safe. And before you start bashing magic and, oh, you're going to hell and all this, if you've ever had a birthday and you closed your eyes and made a wish and then you blew out a candle, congratulations. You've done candle magic. So magic is all around us. It's very real. Words hold power. I promise you. Okay? Any great speaker knows that. You can't ask Martin Luther King Jr., but people like Martin Luther King Jr., great speaker, right? Words hold power. They are very strong. Okay? And so now, if I was rich, powerful, and all that, and I knew you had the abilities to even summon a demon and steal my gold and or my power, would I want you practicing magic? Or as they call it, or what they would call witchcraft? No, I don't think I would. I don't think I'd want you doing that. Not at all. In fact, I think I'd save all that knowledge and know-hows for powers that be. To make sure those that are in power stay in power and don't lose that power. But I'd make sure the common man, much like the government wants more, some areas of the government want more government, trying to replace God, so to speak. They want to replace who you really are. You know that in your indoctrination? You're just human, it's okay. No, we're not. We're made in God's likeness.